If your app signup takes a phone number, you can use that phone number to verify someone is who they say they are. In part 1 of this 2-part video series, we'll use a blog post written by Kelly Robinson that'll work us through building an iOS application right up to the point where we send a verification code using SMS via Twilio Verify. The first thing we need to do is go inside of the Twilio console and head to Verify, and we're going to create a new Verify application that we can use with a backend server for the verification process. I'll name this iOS verification since we're working with iOS in this video, and I'll hit create. Head to the production API key, click to view it, and then copy it to your clipboard so that we can use it inside of our backend application. For the purposes of this tutorial, we're not going to build our own backend. We're going to use one that Kelly wrote already that we can deploy from her GitHub page to Heroku. You can use this for your application as well. All you need to do is head to GitHub, click this deploy to Heroku button. That'll take you over to Heroku. You want to give this a name. I named mine verification backend. And then if you hit deploy, it'll deploy the application code up to Heroku under your account. That'll take a few minutes, but once it's done, head into Manage App and go over to Settings. What we want to do is create a config variable here for our Authy API key. So just name this Authy_API_key, and then paste in the value that you got out of the Twilio console for your Authy application. One more thing you need here, scroll down and grab the URL to the Heroku application. And we're going to need that over in our Xcode application that we'll create now. Create a new project using the single view app template. I'm going to name this phone verification. You can name it whatever you want. Once your project's ready to go, let's create a new file. We're going to create a property list file called config.plist. So search for prop, create a new property list file, and name it config.plist. This is where we're going to store the server URL for our Heroku backend. So create a new row here called server URL, and then paste in the URL to your Heroku backend server. Now we'll work on the UI, so go ahead and click on the main.storyboard file. And the first thing we're going to do is select the view controller and come down here and select Embed in Navigation Controller. This will just give us nice titles and a back button. I like to line this up so that it looks nice. We're going to have 3 screens in the end, so having them look neat inside of the storyboard is a bit of a priority. I'll click the title bar and head over and give it a title of Enter Phone Number. While we're here, let's take care of the name of the view controller. It's currently view controller, and that's the name of the class as well. So click on viewcontroller.swift. Let's change this to start verification view controller. So you'll need to rename the class here, and also, just so that you can keep track of it, rename it inside of the directory structure as well for the project. Back in our storyboard, select the view controller again and change the class identity to start verification view controller. All right, now let's add some controls here. We're going to have 2 text fields, one for the country code and one for the phone number. So I'll drag the first out, and then I'll hold down Option and drag to create the second. And then I'll bring in a button out of the library, and I'm going to change the text for this button to say verify phone number. Once I have all of that created, I'm going to select all 3 of these, and I'm going to group them inside of a stack view vertically and configure it so that they stretch. If you need help with stack views, I dropped some links down in the description below that'll help you out. Next, we'll set the placeholder text for each of the controls. The first one is going to be the country code. So we'll hit that inside of the placeholder. And then the next one after that, the second text box, is going to be the phone number field. So we'll put phone number there. Now we're ready to connect this up to the code. So we'll go into the assistant view, and I'll control drag down from country code to the code and name this outlet country code field. And then I'll do the same for the phone number and name it phone number field. Next, I'll control drag from the verify phone number button and create an action this time called send verification. With our controls set up, we now have the country code field and phone number field that we need, but now inside of this send verification function, we need to be able to send out that initial verification SMS. To do that, we're going to write some code that will work with our backend API. The first one's going to be called datastructures.swift, and it's going to contain enums and some protocols and a class that we can use to work with our API. Instead of typing it all out, I'm just going to paste it in and talk about the 2 things that we need out of here. The data result, which is going to contain data from an API call, as well as a message, and the check result, which contains a success or failure for a verification check along with a message as well. You can get all of this code from the GitHub project that's linked down below in the description. Okay, the next object we're going to need is going to help us make REST requests to our Heroku backend. So I'm going to call it request helper. Again, it's a bit of lengthy code, so rather than type all of it out, I'm going to paste it all in. But essentially, it uses URL sessions data task to make API calls to our Heroku endpoints, and it's capable of receiving JSON back from those endpoints as well. Once again, all of this code is available in the GitHub repository. Okay, now finally we can create our verify API.swift, which is going to contain our calls to our Heroku backend that hits the verify API inside of Twilio. Namely, we need to create one that can start the verification by sending out an SMS to the user's phone when they punch in their country code and phone number. So I'm going to create a static function inside of a struct called verify API that's called send verification code. It'll take two parameters, one's the country code and one's the phone number, both represented by strings, since that's what they'll be inside of our UI from the text field. Next, we'll create a parameters array. We need to pass some parameters to our backend in the calls. So this one is going to take a via, which says that we're using SMS for this verification. Then we'll pass the country underscore code, and that's the country code that gets passed in here. And then a third parameter for the phone number that was passed into the function. Now that we have our parameters, we can use our request helper that we just created to create a request, passing in a path for our server, and that's going to be the start to start our verification. Then we'll pass in the parameters, and then inside of the completion handler, we'll have access to some JSON that comes back from the result, and we're going to use that JSON to return a success message, passing that data along back to our calling function. Now let's head back to our Start Verification View controller, and inside of the Send Verification button, we're going to first set the phone number and country code objects from the text that's inside of the text fields, as long as there's some text there. Then we'll use the verify API.send verification code function that we just wrote to pass in the country code and phone number to kick off the text message over to the user's phone. Okay, let's give everything a test. We'll run it at this point, and on my phone, I will punch in the country code and the phone number and hit verify phone number, and a text message will appear on my phone. In our next video, in part 2, we'll take that code, we'll punch it into another text field and send it off to Heroku and check it against the Twilio Verify API to make sure that that phone number actually belongs to me. So stay tuned for that video coming soon. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider clicking the subscribe button over on the left. If you want to watch another video, I picked one out just for you in the top right, and if you're looking for the code, there's a button in the bottom right for that. Until next time, I'm out of here.